speaker today, Dr. Ramesh. He's the managing director of India Partners. India Partners is a venture capital fund that invests in ideas with potential to change the world across technology, healthcare, and consumer service. He comes with a lot of experience from both sides of the table, being a senior cardiologist and in the board of Nephro Plus, and also the founding directors of Hyderabad Angels and a VC now. So we're really, really excited and eager to hear his perspective and insights on the MedTech startups and how to scale them up. The host for today is going to be Dr. Sonali, who heads the Ojas MedTech Accelerator at IIIT Hyderabad. She has over a decade of experience in healthcare and life sciences. She strongly believes, that the technology can be leveraged to solve biggest healthcare challenges that we face today. And no wonder Ojas Accelerator is one of the India's best programs that we have today for medtech, life sciences, and biotechnology, health tech startups. They help startups in multiple stages, including funding, clinical validation, and commercializing the project, and help them, really go to market. So everyone in the audience here, coming from the medtech and health tech startups, do check out the Ojas Accelerator program. Also, I'll drop in a link very shortly. But without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Sonali to take it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanya. Thanks a lot for this putting these things together. And good evening, everyone. And I would personally want to again thank Dr. Ramesh for taking out time and joining us today for this discussion on how to scale MedTech startup, which is definitely one of the very, very important discussion, which is close to my heart. And I think who would be better than him, as you already mentioned, that he's been a physician, an entrepreneur, founder, a mentor, and now as an investor. So he has seen the every journey, starting from starting a startup and then further taking it to the next level, growth stage, scaling it up, and then funding. So I think we would definitely would like to hear from him what was his experience throughout, and also take some of the suggestions and advise what he think, how what all different challenges might come, or might one startup should foresee while scaling their medtech startup. So I would have a lot of questions definitely, and I'm sure the audience would also have, but Dr. Ramesh had also something for us. So I think you have some couple of slides. So Dr. Ramesh, please go ahead with that, and then I would start moderating the questions. Yeah. Dr. Ramesh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Vanya. Thanks, Dr. Sonali. And at the outset, I'd like to thank the Head Start Network Foundation, the CIIE, and the Ojas Medical Tech in putting this program together. Maybe what I said I will do, maybe I'll share a few slides to share the vantage point from where I'm coming. Obviously, Sonali is asking, is there a playbook to roll out the MedTech? Even though I'm in this space for 60 years as a cardiologist, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, still healthcare is so complex. So I want, that's the context for which I want to share a few slides, and then obviously open up for a Q&A. It's more learning or a two-way exchange rather than me giving you again, because all of you are very bright youngsters. I think if you just give me a second, I will share my slides. What I will do is next, probably I'll not 5-6 minutes. I'll share a few perspectives. What happens is, because an entrepreneur thinks one way, and the user, whether it is the doctors, hospital administrators, think other way. So this is randomly, I picked up 2-3 slides, how everyone looks at innovation. This is not that I completely watching this Cleveland Clinic innovations of the top in 2020, but definitely Cleveland Clinic is one of the best hospitals in the US. And also they have a fabulous Cleveland Clinic Foundation, or Cleveland Clinic Center for Innovation. Obviously, they come from a clinical mindset. If you really look at the top 10 innovations, they said one is a drug for osteoporosis. The second one was a minimally invasive mitral valve surgery device. Third one, again, a very rare cardiomyopathy, amyloid cardiomyopathy, a drug for that. And the fourth one was the therapy for mitigation of peanut emergencies. And the fifth is a closed loop medical cord stimulation that more falls the realm of MedTech devices. And the sixth one is antibiotic envelope for cardiac implantable device infection. Normally, when you put a pacemaker, one of the dreaded complications is the device gets infected and you have to remove the entire, and this is basically a sleeve with antibiotic impregnated. And important biologics in orthopedic repair, and a new drug for cholesterol lowering in patients who are intolerant to statins, or PRP inhibitors for maintenance therapy, ovarian cancer, and drugs for heart failure rejection. Why I picked up this slide is basically to tell the entrepreneurs here, sometimes the needs of the hospitals, the needs of the doctors may be completely be different from what we are thinking. I just want to put just to bring them some semblance of what the innovation can be. Similarly, if you look at, talk to the imaging guys, people who make MRIs, CT scans, ultrasounds, X-ray machines, what are their focus areas, for example? One is obviously, can I acquire images faster? Faster acquisition enables image quality. Or gains in optimal dose efficiency. Can I use less radiation for X-rays or CT scans, get the same image? Or can I convert my 2D image capture to 3D image capturing? Obviously, I'm able to get more information. Or can I superimpose AI as a supplemental lens for medical image analysis? So the first one was Cleveland Clinic is more a clinician driven, and that's how they voted basically devices, drugs. But if you talk to medical imaging guys, these come as the important trends for them. And the third way of looking at is what are the healthcare technology trends for 2021. Sometimes the bottleneck of technology trends is they may appear fascinating, but sometimes we may find it difficult to get the users. For example, telemedicine obviously comes first. Virtual reality, AR, VR is there for a long time. And the Internet of Medical Things, mobile health, blockchain, wearables, cloud computing, nanotechnology, 3D printing, and big data and predictive analytics. These are by themselves appear fascinating, but then sometimes the challenge for entrepreneurs is how to make them into a product, and where hospitals, doctors, or others in the healthcare systems can use it. So I think that's the biggest challenge, to find a technology which is really useful. The next two slides are very interesting. I don't know how many people in the audience come from an imaging background, or they had been to a hospital and seen an MRI machine. I first purchased my MRI machine in 1995, and it needs shielding, magnetic shielding. 30, 40 feet away from it, there'll be not even a lift should be there, elevators, because of the interference. And then a patient, when he goes into the MRI room, cannot even have metal on his body. To the extent patient with pacemakers are not allowed, watches are not allowed, obviously belts are not allowed. And that's how the MRI machines got innovated. From 0.5 Tesla became 1 Tesla to 1.5, 3 Tesla. People started developing increased strength of the magnets to get better quality. But see what Hyperfine has done. They made a portable MRI, where you can take the MRI to the bedside or anywhere, including the doctor's office, and get the image. May not be the same quality as what 1.5 Tesla or 3 Tesla brings in, But because of the advances in imaging techniques, advances in AI techniques, probably even with a 0.003 Tesla MRI, you can give a reasonably good image. And that's the kind of innovation. If you can crack something like it, obviously your ability to reach the market will be far more easy. And I like the statement. Somebody combined chocolate and peanut butter and created millions of smiles. I'm sure they made billions of rupees also, billions of dollars also. Hyperfine combined wheels and an MRI and is prepared to change the lives of millions of patients. I think this is a very powerful statement and a great example of technology in healthcare, which probably doesn't need much of a marketing, much of a sales, because this is absolutely necessary. And similarly, this is an ultrasound machine. Sonali, are you able to hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Normally, I don't know whether how many of you have seen an ultrasound machine. When I was in Chandigarh, 1985 to 1987, huge machine, 6 feet in height. At those days itself, we purchased a machine for 1 crore of rupees, 1985 to 87. And today, the same technology is just available on your iPhone and just the probe. The probe itself is everything. And you're using the power of the mobile to do the computing. And our goal is to democratize healthcare by making medical imaging accessible to everyone who needs it. We are partnering with clinicians across the globe in an effort to make that vision a reality. Normally, ultrasound needs to be in a physical diagnostic center or hospital. Patients needs to come. In most of the countries, a technician does it, but obviously they're really highly trained. In India, because of regulation, only an radiologist or a sonologist can do it because of the fear of sex determination. But even otherwise, what happens? There are many parts of the country, in this country itself, 1.3 billion people. I won't be surprised if a billion people don't have access to ultrasound, at least 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers. And this power of this technology, this company is called Butterfly. The previous company is called Hyperfine. This Butterfly IQ, it just needs a probe and your phone. Costs $1,000 or $2,000 in the US. It's not available in this country. And what all it needs is even a fourth class or a fifth class student, small village, can just put the probe on the patient's abdomen. The images get onto the cloud, and obviously AI can interpret, or if not AI, at least someone sitting on the central command center can at least pick up any major abnormalities are there. And I think this is the kind of innovation, obviously, if one can reach to, it will make your life easy. And obviously, it's not that easy. In fact, probably in the last 50 years, in ultrasound, this is the most innovative technology. And in MRI, probably in the last 30 years, probably this most earth-changing change in development in the technology. So coming back to my experience, I want to leave the last slide here and then we can take questions. Dr. Sonali was asking, is there a playbook for MedTech startups, MedTech entrepreneurs they can replicate? Even though I'm in the investment side for almost 10 years, but definitely I think that's the most challenging, because every opportunity, every solution, when you go into the field, the way you crack the market is totally different. So why I listed in this order, because I've done multiple, probably around 10 investments. Nephroplus is a dialysis, purely clinical services, probably in 20 states, 250 centers. And in the previous fund, not Endiya partners, me and Satish Andhra are part of a fund called Venturies Tenet Fund. As part of that, almost like 7-8 years back, 2013-14, we invested a couple of companies. One of them is called Smart RX. It's a patient engagement platform. Second one was Medi Angels, second opinion platform. Probably we're ahead of time, 2013 onwards. We had a lot of challenges. And one more interesting company, One Breath, low cost ventilator, 2012-13. My thesis at that time, when I wrote this thesis and funded this company, why I want to bring it up is the challenges of a great technology, but sometimes you lose the way. My thesis at that time was, if the next pandemic, this is a Stanford incubated company, if the next pandemic occurs, at that time I wrote a thesis saying that in America, you will not have enough ICU beds. You have to treat patients in the corridors. You will not have power. You will not have access to oxygen. That means a ventilator has to run on battery for 24 hours. A ventilator has to run on room air without oxygen lines. Can it be portable? Can it be easily stackable in one room? You can put thousands of ventilators. So when the next pandemic arises, you have something to fall back on. Everything is perfect. I anticipated this pandemic 5, 6 years back, but we had some challenges in taking this to the market. So in the present fund, we have invested in SIG-tuple AI in pathology, clinical pathology to be more specific. EkinCare is a health benefits platform for corporate employees. CureFit more on the consumer side, B2C, a one-stop solution for fitness. And in the fund two, we invested in cell therapy company called iStem, which is treatment for age-related macular degeneration. There's no treatment for AMD as on today. This is a cell therapy, pluripotent stem cells to stimulate the retinal pigment epithelial cells so that they nourish the rods and cones so that the vision can be improved. Again, all or not bet. They're in the animal phase. The initial results are good, but we have to go through all the phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, FDA regulation, etc. And one more company name we haven't yet announced, the AI company. Why I brought up this slide is to just tell the spectrum of investments I've done, almost like 9, 10 investments. All of them are maybe related to medtech or digital health, but definitely there's no playbook. All of them, the customers are different, the way you engage different. Some of them needs regulatory approval, some of them may not need regulatory approvals but need customer acceptance. So with this, Dr. Sonali, I will stop my slide presentation, and then I will back to you, and maybe any questions you want to ask me or the audience, whichever is the right format for you.
Sure, we are going to be we are going to keep it very, very interactive. So any participants have any question, any point of time, please either put it on the chat box or just unmute yourself, and you can always ask question. So yeah. Meanwhile, I would definitely would like to start with the definition question, because this is always very, very there's a lot of definition of scaling, right? So I really want to know from an investor's perspective, what's your definition of scaling? So how do you define scaling? Yeah.
I think, as I told you, that's the most difficult question. That's the reason I put all my companies. Some of them which needs a regulatory pathway, I think there's no way you can scale. I think when we do an investment thesis, it's not the revenue, because the definitions for a product startups is different from growth companies. So when we have in our own portfolio, not just the healthcare, we have a set of companies or in the product development stage itself. There are certain set of companies, we have the early revenue companies. And the third set of companies, we have late revenue companies or the growth companies. For example, Darwin Box, you must have heard about it. It's a HR tech platform. And that's more a B2B SaaS platform. That is a growth stage company. So those metrics are totally different. Example, how do you the sales pipeline and how do you convert them? But on the other hand, someone developing iStem, for example, developing a pluripotent stem cell, we don't even talk about scaling actually. And the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, when are you completing your animal studies? When are you getting your first in man studies? When are you getting to phase 2/phase 3? And I think it completely changes. I think so. Even with my 10 years of experience, I haven't reached a stage. Maybe, for example, CureFit is totally different. CureFit is consumer play. That's totally different, I think. So it all depends upon your startups and what companies are there. So if, for example, the companies I showed you, the Hyperfine MRI machine, the butterfly IQ. I don't think the moment they announce that we are coming to India, and if you see hyperfine advertisement, sales marketing in the LinkedIn, every day they go to a different city. They put a nice branded vehicle and they go to a different town every day and put up in a 5-star hotel and doctors come. So automatically their scaling is probably every day they may be selling, monthly they may be growing 10x, and year on year they may be growing 100x. So it all depends upon, I think, what kind of a product you have. And I think you have to be realistic. The investors have to be realistic when we make the pitch. It's not just the growth alone. For example, someone developing a drug, for example, in fact, I'm looking at one company. They're very clear. Right now, we are on the lab bench, and probably my goal is to get to animal studies and then out license the company. So the investors also know that this company, if they cross the animal studies and maybe phase 1 studies, and then out license the company. So that the goal for the company is itself that, because startup, there's no way you can take the molecule all the way from animal studies to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Right.
And if there is a agreement between the investors and the founding team, the goal is to cross the animal studies and then I'll find an exit. So I think one has to be realistic. It need not be a hyper scaling of growth for all these companies.
So what you're saying, it's very, very subjective based on what solution you're offering. And of course, I mean, seeing drug, as you mentioned, couple of examples, like drug which has a very, very long gestation period. I think, can we also say, like, we can say one should scale, or it should be, we can say that this company is going to scale when the next production unit is much lesser than the earlier one. The investment which is required for R&D, at the beginning, is much lesser when you're doing it for the for a bigger lot. So is that the stage of scale up? That can we say that is a scaled up stage?
Yeah. For example, if you are talking of pure medtech, again, when I take medtech, we'll divide in 2 categories: medical device,
yes,
or a digital therapeutic company. So both approaches can be totally be different. For example, a medtech company, the examples I gave, or even One Breath, for example. I think the only way to scale is to get your regulatory approvals. You can't short circuit. I'll get somehow some government approval and all that. If you want to build a company to go global scale, the FDA is the gold standard.
Right.
Probably in between, you can always get a CE marking and start selling in the country. If it's in India, you can always sell to a CE marking. But definitely doctors are very brand conscious. Hospitals are brand conscious. They always ask for, do you have a CE? Do you have an FDA approval? So I think anyone building a medical device have to be mentally prepared. I'll only scale after I get a decent FDA. In fact, a couple of our companies, 1 or 2 companies, have the CE marking, but still they're not accelerating the pedal, accelerating on the sales, because they want to make sure it's a global company. You have to have the FDA. So while we have the CE marking, we are pushing for the FDA also for them to really go in a big way. Or assuming you have a digital health company, digital health, for example, I would use the word digital therapeutics for a lack of a better word, not the platforms. There again, consumers probably you can always directly sell, but if you want to have a medical product prescribed by the doctor to the patient, for example, a diabetic patient, an app, or a patient with backache, sitting posture, is there an app which we can? Or drug addiction, for example, a combination of medicine plus an app.
Yeah.
So those come under the word medical therapeutics, and they are regulated. And the reason they're regulated is because the doctor has to prescribe, and he'll only prescribe this regulated product. Then your roadmap is totally different. You'll never try to scale it up, waste your investors' money or your time and effort until you get the appropriate regulatory approvals. On the other hand, this is an app for ovulation, for example. It doesn't need to be prescribed by a doctor. That's a totally different ball game. There, I think I see a lot of enthusiasm, investors pushing money, entrepreneurs pushing money, spending 1,000 rupees to acquire 1 customer. Those models, India partners, and we are not comfortable. Probably because we don't know how to do that. Spending $50 million to acquire 1 million customers and then find out the answer. So we are a little old tradition. If you're building a medical device, if you're building a therapeutic product, get the regulatory approvals, get accepted by a few thought leaders, key opinion leaders, get a few publications, and you show it's a medical product. And then this is a long journey, but I think this is the way to grow. But on the other hand, if you're a consumer oriented person, if you know how to acquire customers, that's a totally different. Endiya Partners by itself is more a product focused fund. We don't do too many consumer deals because none of our founding members have the DNA to reach out to the consumers. I'm not saying that is bad, but we don't have the expertise and will not be able to comment on that kind of business models wherein you just push money out, acquire as many customers as possible, later find out how to monetize those. We are not strong in that field, and we'll try to avoid, and probably I'll avoid making comments on that also because that's not our strength.
Okay, so do you also think like when you actually achieve a product market fit, when you actually get real validation through the consumer, maybe this is for the other side where you may not be very comfortable, but still because there's a lot of startups come from that sort of solution as well. So for them, because of course I do understand for a medtech, which is very IP driven, they have a technology, then they need regulatory. And once you have validated through, regulatory, doctors are buying, government is buying in your solution, then you are actually scaling. So that completely makes sense. You don't want to come back and, redo things if FDA does not approve. So that completely makes sense. But the consumer side, when you don't have such regulation, and it's, in fact, software as medical device, I mean, you do have one or two, I saw investment. There also, things are really little gray right now. I mean, we don't have a clear guideline on what sort of regulation it requires. If it is not associated with any device, it's just a software, right? Like AI for predictive analysis, or AI for you had something on that. So what is for them as in terms of what regulatory, what they need to go for, and of course the scale part. And my second question was also which I began with, is the consumer side. Is it the product market fit? Can they think post once they achieve the product market fit, after beyond that they can actually scale?
Yeah, I think again, I will divide into two categories. If it is a medical device, whether it's hardware or a software, I think it's always safer to go through that regulatory route. The examples I gave you for asthma, for example, for diabetes, for hypertension, for backache, for drug addiction, is far more safer to go through that regulatory approach, get the permissions from various governments, reimbursement codes and all that. This direct to consumer, I think it's so much of information is available freely. How to monetize, I think it's a genuine problem we face, and I don't have the right answers, but I think the entrepreneurs are the right people to figure it out, because our expertise doesn't come in as medical doctors, as scientists. I think if they can crack that, if they know how to reach to the consumer psyche, and if consumers flock to their website in millions, power to them. Yeah. In fact, in a similar company we have in the previous fund called Style Craze, not on the medical side. They scaled. They have 20 million unique visitors, monthly active users. 25 million people come to their website. They cracked it. Content monetization. They write on beauty and wellness, and they know what people are looking for in the entire world, what kind of unique keywords, and they write articles on that. 25 million users come to their websites, and smartly they did move to the content monetization to product monetization. They started selling Ayurvedic products on top of it, actually, and they scale phenomenally well. So if our own company, but I can't call that as a pure healthcare companies on beauty and wellness.
It's more on the wellness. Is it on the wellness?
And beauty and wellness.
Okay.
It's not just wellness. So they're able to scale fab, and 99% of their customers come from around the world, not from India. And they sell Ayurvedic skin products throughout the world, actually.
Okay.
They have very unique algorithm. They ask people a few questions, 10, 15 questions, and they customize the product and give it to them.
Interesting.
Unlike mass beauty products, which they sell in and then send to the throughout the world by parlors and in duty-free shops, there's no way to get the feedback whether they're working or not. Actually, you may buy $100 perfume, but you will now never get the feedback. Whereas for this company, because they're all digitally acquired, they know every customer and they like the product, they hate the product. Why? If they hate the product, they know why they're hating the product. They do the iterations. So some of our companies have scale, but again, that's completely a different mindset the entrepreneur has to come.
Right. I'll take a pause here because I know some of the audience would have some questions. So yeah, please go ahead. Anybody would like to ask any questions? Please go ahead.
Sonali, there are a few questions on the chat box. Maybe one of you can review and then select them.
So there's an announcement. Okay, these are mostly announcement from Vanya. Yeah.
You want to ask any questions? Allow them to speak. Is that the better way to speak or?
Yeah, anything is okay. It's a very open forum, and we really encourage people to ask. And you won't find Dr. Ramesh like this. It's very difficult to get his time. So please go ahead and use this time as much as you can. Yeah, there's a question. What are some of the trends in women health, sexual and reproductive health?
Yeah. Again,
this question came from. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I think surprisingly, we invested in women's health company 5-6 years back. Again, probably we're ahead of the times. Again, is consumer side, and basically anything related to women, and more like a pre-primary care, not even primary care, pre-primary care. And when I spoke to many people, investors around the world, when I used to tell about that company versus the rest of the companies, everyone is fascinated by women's health rather than the other high-tech companies I have. If I talk about AI and pathology, health benefits platform, no, please talk about the women's health. Even 5 years back, actually.
That's interesting. I mean, at least it is a news for me that people are very, very interested about knowing the women health. Yeah,
absolutely. The reason is for multiple reasons. Even countries like India, if you go to a hospital, 2/3 of the beds are occupied by men. Only 1/3 of the beds are occupied by women. Right. Even late as 30 years back, when I'm a medical student, there's a male ward, there's a female ward. If the male ward is 40, the female ward is 20. So by nature, because the economy, whatever little bit money is there, they're spent on the men.
Right.
Because they are the breadwinners, and the women are given. So obviously, that's one other. For social reasons, women are less proactive in going to the clinics or hospitals taking care of their health. So ideally, a virtual world, virtual clinic. I've seen many examples, not just on ovulation. There's a couple of startups only on polycystic ovary disease. In fact, last Y Combinator, two young ladies started a company just focusing on polycystic ovarian syndrome, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. So to that focus, but again, I always have, okay, it looks intuitive. A lot of women needs help, but the question is, how do you monetize them? But definitely, even among the so-called teleconsultation companies, a dime a dozen are there. If you ask them what are the 1, 2, 3 categories of people coming to them, mainly sexual health and mental health and skin disorders. Sexual health and mental health, because the society has a taboo on, so they don't want to go to a hospital. And the third one was skin lesions, because skin dermatology is very amenable for virtual care. So if you ask any of the top 10 teleconsultation companies, top 3 indications are sexual health, mental health, and skin lesions, actually. So I think there's a big opportunities there in women's health in the virtual world, but all those challenges, how do you monetize them, will all be there.
Yeah, I mean, skin issues are definitely one of the biggest thing which is coming up. We have recently have another startup on our accelerator, eSkin Doctor, and they have an AI based. You just click an image, and then AI would tell what sort of predictive, differential diagnosis, and then it would also connect with doctors. And interestingly, they could actually gather very quickly some lakhs of images. And I was fascinated to see that people really delay on their these sort of skin lesions, because it's so much of unawareness. They think it will go on its own, or also the skin treatment, or these are very chronic diseases, so it requires multiple visits. So of course a lot of from the monetary side also, it's a huge burden on the family. So people definitely do sort of delay these, and which led to multiple other problems. So yeah, I mean, skin is
And
definitely
in fact, there's a doctor whom I admire, Eric Topol, is a cardiologist who heads the translational research at Scripps Clinic. He's very popular on the Twitter, actually, Eric Topol. In his book, I forgot the name of the book, he has written a book recently. He has divided doctors into two varieties: doctors with images and doctors without images. So there are certain specialities where AI can play a role.
yeah.
Dermatologists, because it's all visual.
Yes.
Similarly, radiologists, it's all images.
Yep.
Similarly, pathologists, it's all looking at the images. So certain specialties are very amenable for AI applications. Whereas surgery, for example, you need to operate, or gynecology, for example, certain specialties are not amenable for AI, and certain specialties are more amenable for AI. So he has classified the doctors with images and doctors without images.
But very ironically, that dermatologists never have an image series of images, right? I mean, I don't think they would even remember or have a record that what happened earlier and now with medication, how the progress is going on. So some platform with this sort of case capsule would be definitely helpful for them to at least remember that what was the earlier status, and how it's affect how the therapy is progressing.
Yeah.
So I think we got a couple of questions, so I'll just take some of them. Yeah. Hello, sir. I'm developing a tech clinical tool from Incubation Center, IIT Patna, IV bag monitoring system based on IoT and sensor technology. How this product changed the hospital wards management as per your experience? In our product, what kind of medical regulations and certification would be required?
Sure.
From Sagar, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen this even 30 years back, 20 years back. We have the infusion sets. We have the infused syringe pumps. We have actually, for all practical purposes, they solve that purpose. I think. While I see a lot of people, young people, trying to develop a product, so I really fail to understand. You have the syringe pumps. You have the infusion syringes. You can set, for example, 1 ml per hour. It just delivers 1 ml per hour. So I'm not very sure where this new extra technology will come in. The IoT adding to an existing. Maybe on the cost side you can reduce, but definitely even the regular equipment guys, syringe pumps come for 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees. So sometimes very difficult. On the cost alone, unless the cost comes down by, like the ultrasound machine I told you, Butterfly IQ, from 50,000, not even 50,000, $100,000, 60 lakh rupees to 1 lakh rupees. That's the kind of you should bet on. Suppose if you really want to develop a technology, if it's 10x cheaper, 20x cheaper, maybe okay. But if you want to reduce the price by maybe 1/4, on the price alone, you may not win the war.
Yeah. Okay. And the regulatory side, what kind of medical regulation it would require?
I think for any medical device, I think while I'll definitely, whether for India or elsewhere, the highest goal is in FDA.
Yeah.
The second highest is the CE marking.
Marking.
And
Yeah.
obviously, in a country specific, I'm sure Medical Devices Regulation Act also has come in India
Yes. Yeah.
with its own challenges. No one really knows what is happening. But at least CE marking and FDA marking, clear-cut regulatory pathway. So it's always better to aim at those. While on the way, if you can apply for the Indian guidelines, nothing. But always better to apply for the highest regulations in mind.
Right. The other question we have is what can be done in space of chronic management, which can click with India's population, which is not much tech savvy? Any suggestion how to approach this community, as this is the community which spends most in healthcare, 50 plus age group? So chronic management in elderly care, basically. So 50 plus is elderly care. So how do you reach this community? They're not tech savvy, but I think
No, that's very interesting. Why I'm, in fact, I don't know whether you've seen my two recent articles. Why linking Aadhaar with RT-PCR test, very provocative test I wrote actually. For example, I'm sure all the 50 people today on the audience are on the Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. You always get reminders. 1 year back, your photography is like this. 5 years back, your photography is, oh, come on, 5 years back, I'm looking young. Sonali was telling doctor, you're looking old. So why I said that was, Facebook, social media knows you 5 years back how you are,
right.
2 years back how you are, 20 years back how you are, without you making an effort. On the other hand, Dr. Ramesh, do you know your blood pressure 1 year back, 5 years back? I don't know. Do you know your blood sugar 1 year back, 5 years back? I don't know. So Facebook was able to do it without I making an effort. So if there's any way, as the person who asked this question, without I making an effort, automatically my information comes there. And those long-term data will be fabulously useful. For that, I'm a strong votary of having a unique ID for all the citizens of this country. And my article was that, which I wrote 3-4 days back. The reason was, I got my vaccination on March 8th. That is linked to my Aadhaar. So the system knows I got my first dose of vaccination. April 10th or May 10th, I'm tested RT-PCR positive, COVID theoretically. But I got a reminder 4 days back, my second dose of vaccine is due on May 31st. Because my RT-PCR test is not linked to my Aadhaar card, the government doesn't know that I got COVID in between.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they should have told me, you should come for your second vaccination. Why I brought it up the subject is, a lot of people say, no, health data is so precious, it will fall into bad people's hands, they'll misuse the data, insurance people misuse the data. But lack of information, see how dreadful it is.
Yes.
Today, government is saying the breakthrough infections after taking COVID-2 vaccines is 0.005%. After one injection is 0.00. How do they know? They don't know actually. Because your vaccination is linked to Aadhaar, your RT-PCR test is not linked to Aadhaar, your admission is not linked to Aadhaar, your ventilator care is not linked to Aadhaar. Assuming that 50 people in this audience got both the vaccines, if 5 of them are RT-PCR positive, the government will not know. So I think coming back to this question, the simplest would be, when you go to a doctor for a prescription, a digital output has to be given. When you go to a pharmacy, a sale, again, it has to be digital printout has to be given. So-and-so purchase so-and-so medicines. When an ANM, auxiliary nurse midwife or ASHA worker comes to your village to check your pregnant lady's blood pressure, hemoglobin, urine, has been tested 1,000 times, but the data is missing. If I transfer 1 rupee to you from my account to your account, there is a digital trail. I can't just transfer 1 rupee to you. The cost of transaction is negligible. So why can't we make for every transaction healthcare, hospital record, OPD, pharmacy, primary care in the villages, a digital footprint has to be there. Then everyone will have a track record of 5 years data, 10 years data, 20 years data. They'll be useful for chronic disease management, prevention, better treatment, and also even epidemics, for example, you can better manage. Today, we don't know where the mucormycosis, which pin codes is more prevalent, because we're not tagging them actually. I think that's an absolutely, obviously, challenges will be there for 1 billion people. When Aadhaar can do it, for fintech revolution, the other data is even more important. Fintech data, at least you're losing money. If we can do it in fintech, why can't we do it in healthcare? And I think that I strongly advocate. There may be some challenges how to roll out a unique ID for 1.3 billion. Where does this data sit? And how do you maintain transparency? Like a DigiLocker, for example, I have my data is with me only. If I go to a hospital, I give access to it. There are openings, but I think it can be done. I think Aadhaar is a good example what can be done in fintech, and I don't see any reason why it can't be done in the healthcare version.
Healthcare. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge. We even for our AI startup, they don't have data to work on that, right? I mean, we talk so much about AI, but at the base level, if you see, there's no data, so it's difficult. So it's such a big difficulty to even have a good data and access to structured data, which actually brings me to that question that why we don't have a policy at a government level that, like US, we have everything. It's a policy driven that any hospital would need to have EHR, EMR. In fact, that's also I see a second question here, that why EHR is not being used in India. I mean,
I think if you see the national digital health machine,
yes,
NDHM, I think Prime Minister announced 2 years back.
yeah,
There's a electronic health record, uniform health record policy has been announced. Even the unique health ID has been launched in a few union territories 2 years back, and this pandemic came in. Probably everyone got distracted, but government is thinking on those lines, and I think I strongly believe if that happens, as you rightly said, a lot of startups can work on this data, whether it is not just the images, dermatology, pathology, radiology is far more easy, but in coming up with other disease models, length of stay or predicting mortality. My next blog will be with millions of patients getting RT-PCR positive COVID,
yeah.
3 lakh deaths, maybe 20 million, 30 million hospitalization patients are there. So much of data is there. Why are we not able to predict which patient will need ventilator care, which patient will die, which patient needs remdesivir, which patients needs toxilozumab? Why can't we predict all of them? I think I always challenge whether AI is hyped or are we missing something? So I think with COVID, we lost a great opportunity
No,
to.
I think there were a couple of startups which tried, but there was no access to data. Where is the data? I mean, there is absolutely no one get those data which is there, at ICMR, or I don't know where is the data. No one is talking about that. So yeah, definitely at the policy level, that's one. But is there any other incentive for hospital to even think on those lines? Start their own EHR.
No, it won't happen. Uniform EHR won't happen. In the US, the stick and carrot approach. If you follow all the electronic health guidelines, you'll get maybe 0.5% increased remuneration, the reimbursement. And that's how they force the implementation by hospitals, small clinics, individual practitioners. And I think that's the only approach it will work.
So
Yeah.
it has to be enforced from the government. So we'll have to,
Otherwise, every hospital, they don't want to do it. I don't want to follow the same protocol what other hospitals. I want my data to remain with me proprietary. Whereas the moment you make it interoperable, the patient can move from one hospital to the other hospital without losing all the information.
True. Yeah. So we have a couple of questions. Indian government is creating national health ID, which you already talked about, without patient permission for every citizen who has taken COVID-19 vaccine with Aadhaar ID proof.
Sorry, first part I understood. What is the second part?
Yeah, even I didn't get the question. He has a couple of things. Okay, let me read the first point first. National Digital Health Mission has been created for same unique ID. Yeah, that's we talked about. So I didn't get the question. I mean, I think this is just an opinion.
Yeah.
But then I also like this. I was just thinking, because you mentioned the Aadhaar card was not connected with the RT-PCR, but they do ask you to get your Aadhaar card for the RT-PCR test, and
No.
that's
What happened was the first wave, they made it mandatory for RT-PCR test, not only your Aadhaar card, there's a questionnaire is there. Whereas in the second wave, all the private hospitals in Hyderabad city I tested, they did not ask for your Aadhaar card.
Oh, is it? Thankfully, ours did, but and that's how they are also doing the counts, right? Otherwise, where do you have the count? Where do you have the numbers? Like how what
No,
is the
the laboratories upload. I have done so many tests today,
Yeah.
but they didn't ask the Aadhaar card.
And I think that's also not connected with the how the vaccines have been given. Otherwise, it's very unfortunate that if you have got the COVID, they can't ask you to go for a second dose of vaccination. Yeah. So
No, the point I'm making it is, if everything is linked to one ID, so much information will come not only longitudinally, temporarily also. It's both vertically as well as it will be good for everyone actually.
right, it has to be connected with each other. So hello sir, I'm working on a mask specific for healthcare workers to prevent them airborne disease. Please guide me about the market. Mask for healthcare workers. So is this mask is different than any other mask? It says that it is for to prevent the airborne diseases, which
No, I think the mask, lot of articles came in. I think as on today, N95 is the best without the exhaust, and for a general public is the mask plus the surgical mask plus the cloth mask, double masking. Absolutely, yeah. I don't think even healthcare workers we need beyond N95.
Right. I'll take this question. This is very interesting. I find it often difficult to make a demarcation about the clinical trials. Being associated in academia, it's difficult to understand how much clinical trial data are sufficient, especially considering the diversification of sample types or get the regulatory approval. So can you please shed some light in these perspective? How much? What's the significant data size, and how when we say that this is a this is a good clinical trial?
Sure. So it's basically asking what is the sample size required?
Yeah, to get a regulatory approval.
Yeah, I think ideally it is the statisticians who will tell the sample size. For example, if they, obviously I'm not a statistician, I'm more a clinician like him. And assuming you're doing a phase 2 clinical trial, you are comparing A drug versus B drug. What is the difference you're expecting? Is it a superiority trial or a non-inferiority trial? If it is so based upon the expected difference, obviously the sample size will differ. So obviously it needs a statistical modeling to tell. In the phase 2 study, for example, comparing drug A versus drug B, they will tell you need 1,000 patients, you need 500 patients. I believe this is reasonably science-based, and a good statistician who has done on clinical trials should be able to come up with a solution.
Yeah, that's what the job of clinical trial research organization too. They plan the entire study and then do
absolutely
multi-city.
A good CRO also should be able to, with their statisticians' help, able to guide for a particular protocol, for a particular, if it's a drug, if it's a device, depending upon the intending clinical benefit, they should be able to estimate the protocol, the sample size.
Okay. So another question on business model. What would be your advice for a telemedicine platform going for B2B or B2C model?
I'm trying to see
the question. This comes from Sudhir.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Telemedicine, B2B, B2C.
Yeah. Which, what do you think, which platform, I mean, what business model they should adopt?
I think B2C is very challenging, whatever I've seen. Some people have succeeded, a few companies, but probably B2B may be far more easier to solve. Yeah.
So approach hospitals and then through that B2B2C may be a better way.
Or a corporates, two-way corporates.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
With large, deep pockets.
Right. Practo is what now getting into corporates, I think.
I don't know what Practo does after 5-6 years, but in general, unless you have deep pockets, because customer acquisition cost is so high.
Yeah.
And also, one more thing we need to differentiate. Someone ordering food, for example, you order, if not every day, every week, or every month, 3-4 times. Even if you order once a week, it's 50 times you order in a year. Swiggy, for example, assuming you acquire the same 30-year-old girl, how often will she use a telemedicine app maybe once, unless this is a mental health or serious problem. So your lifetime acquisition, lifetime revenue will be far less in healthcare. So that's, you have to balance it out by your LTAC versus CAC versus some of these business models. Just because Swiggy is successful, Zomato successful, B2C, the healthcare model may not, because at the end of the day, how much will they pay you? 250 rupees per consultation, 500 rupees per consultation, maybe once in a year, because it's not a very recurring. That's the reason. Be very specific. Go after diabetes, chronic disease management through corporates. Then it will be far more easy to your cost of customer acquisition. You can balance it out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's. So there's another question on, is there a scope for usage of telemedicine or app for prevention and management of lifestyle disease in India?
Obviously, there are 80 million diabetic patients, 250 million hypertensive patients, mental health probably 1/3 of the population, and smoking, obesity, definitely all these chronic diseases, lifestyle diseases. Again, the question is, unfortunately, who will pay for it?
Right.
The customers not willing to pay. That's where corporates, B2B, some of these applications, because corporates may be, I don't mind, assuming I run a company, 1,000 employees. If 200 people have hypertension, diabetes, obesity, the corporates can always say, okay, you sign up for disease management, I'll pay for you. So that's where I think a lot of startups are struggling, whether in, especially in B2C, customers are not willing to pay a subscription. Unlike in the US, $1,000, $100, whether I use it or not, I don't mind paying. Here, people paying 5,000 rupees to an app for someone giving advice. Those challenges you would see. That's the reason maybe B2B may be slightly easier.
Also, like, I don't know how many are very active on preventive care. I mean, they really seek preventive care. We are always about sick care. When we are really not feeling well, then only we think of going to a doctor. I mean, nobody would. In fact, the whole system is that way. You can't just go to a doctor and say, hi, and I just want to, I'm okay, but I really want to see what's happening with me. So that concept is still not there.
Yeah, in fact, if you see the United Nations 2011 have announced non-communicable diseases as a global emergency.
Yep.
It's only the second time in the history of United Nations a General Assembly has been called for. The first time was for HIV, but HIV is far more easy because the way you acquire HIV is through sexual transmission. So it's easy to educate public. They're able to effectively, public messages were good. They're able to stop it. Whereas for chronic diseases, including mental health, they're all lifelong lifestyle changes, month after month, year after year. So difficult to change the behavior. That's the reason many of these efforts have failed, actually.
Yeah, you mentioned 80 million people, and I think there are another 80 million which are preconditioned. So if we can prevent them to reach to the diabetes, that itself is it's a big.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that probably includes the 80 million includes maybe the pre-diabetics.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think about non-invasive glucometer market? Why hasn't at least one of the device come into the market, even with advanced medical technologies? Yeah.
I'm not sure what he meant by a non-invasive.
So you have to pinch you have to take out the blood to
all of them are invasive, and the other one was this continuous glucose monitoring. You put a patch. There also a micro needle goes into the interstitial.
Right.
But that person who asked this question, was he referring to them or completely transcutaneous from the conjunctiva and all that? Even Google has tried that from the conjunctiva itself through your contact lenses or even from saliva. It is possible. In fact, recently I've come across a team which is measuring the volatile compounds in the breath and trying to correlate with the blood sugar. They're not measuring the the breath sugar. They're measuring some other chemical compound in the breath, and by using AI algorithm, trying to correlate whether this correlates to the blood sugar. And so people are trying saliva, conjunctival fluid, and and various other techniques like breath analysis in trying to correlate. But again, you need validations and then acceptance and all that. Yeah.
I think that's some of the, interesting in the your mouth breath. There are so many components, which is like nitrogen, CO2, oxygen. So based on that component, they would understand that, how your lipid profile is doing. So why not glucose? I mean, if the other things can be monitored, so I'm sure there would be some research on those as well.
Yeah, again, obviously you need the proof that it is working. For
Yeah.
example, even fundus cameras, fundus examinations, normally when you do a fundus examination, you can identify complications of diabetes, complications of hypertension. But there may be so many other subtle changes in the fundus camera, which may be linked to some other disease where we don't know the associations.
Okay.
By pairing large data sets, you may be able to, the AI can predict a completely a disease which we never thought about it, looking for the fundus images itself. But for that, we need large data sets, large longitudinal years of information before it becomes.
I think someone has actually typed that Zyrex is already doing it. I would like to check on the company's offering. So
Maybe, I know as we're running out of time, maybe I'll send my mail ID. Hope they won't spam me, but if any specific questions they have, I can always ask them. I can always answer them.
Sure, that's great. I mean, yeah, I see there's a lot of questions unanswered, but yeah, we have already past 5 minutes past.
I don't mind taking those questions. If you can read out I typed my mail ID on the chat box. If any one of you can quickly ask any questions, maybe over the weekend I can answer next weekend.
Okay, so I think there's a follow-on question on the same glucometer. How will a non-invasive glucometer classified under medical category? Why CDCSO in a recent notification, CDSO has announced glucometer as IVD devices. So the non-invasive ones, why would they call as an IVD devices?
I'll not have an answer. It's a very specific question.
Yeah.
I think we need to dig further. Yeah. And also of late, CDSU also is reasonably proactive, like the FDA. I think we can reach out to them. If they don't answer, ask BIRAC, Department of Biotechnology. They can coordinate and set up an answer why they're asking. Yeah.
No, I think even if it is non-invasive, there are different classes. Class 1, class 2, class 3. So it has to fall in one of the category. So every category has defined their regulation. Of course, the class 3 being the major risk one. So there has to be a definition. So I think that's how it is there in the CDSCO. But I would love to connect if you have any questions, follow on with experts. So please ping me later. There is another question on what is the significant information doctor needs from patient in emergency or general consultation. That's
I think, maybe we can take it offline.
Mr. Ravi, what question I missed? I'm sorry. He said that I missed his question. Okay, so what do you think about technology-driven products and services around infection prevention and control as an investment thesis? Given that the pandemic has exposed the severity and seriousness of secondary infection as HAIs, hospital-acquired infections, do you think hospitals would be more inclined to adopt technology-driven solution around IPC?
I know it's it's a good question. It's a little quite longish.
I think it would require much longer discussion.
I'm trying to see what do you think about technology-driven products and services around infection prevention control as an investment thesis, given that the pandemic has exposed the severity and seriousness of the secondary infections and hospital-acquired. Do you think hospitals would be more inclined to adopt technology-driven solutions around it? I know, obviously, that's a major problem, antibiotic resistance. I see a couple of startups developing AI algorithms in predicting which drug will be suitable in tuberculosis. Similarly, even from the general information itself from your electronic health record, predicting which antibiotic you'll be sensitive to. So definitely, this antibiotic resistance is an important subject, but the solution has to be very specific. Definitely. Because every hospital has their own policy, hospital infection control policy, and antibiotic policy also. And they change it every year. Good hospitals, at least in the West, and probably some of the good Indian hospitals have their own antibiotic policy, hospital infection policy, and they change it every year. For urinary tract infection, this is what you should do. For a respiratory tract infection, what you should do. And your solution has to be far more superior than them. Using AI algorithms, you can do it. But definitely, that's a very interesting subject, but definitely worth digging into.
Yeah, there are a couple of startups who are building software-based, predictive scoring for neonatal sepsis. So,
Yeah.
whether what's the scoring coming? What is the chances the baby is actually going towards the sepsis? So, because antibiotic resistance itself is in it's a major challenge. So we should definitely avoid putting so much of antibiotics. But then there's always a risk versus benefit. I mean, just deciding, because it is neonate specifically, like you can't take the risk of not putting antibody. So it has to be like that. It has to be that solid, the AI algorithm, that it would be able to say that you don't need antibiotic, and then baby should be okay for a rest 2 more days and all that, right? So I think we finished most of the questions. Okay, but the last question, which I actually kept it for the last, which is we would like to know your investment thesis, maybe in 1 or 2 lines, if you can say, then we'll wind it up.
Our investment thesis in healthcare is reasonably broad. Anything in medical devices, digital health, life sciences. Maybe I'll give an examples. Life sciences, the company I invested recently, iStem, a stem cell therapy for age-related macular degeneration. That means, again, a pre-revenue company. Product also is not there. It's still in the experiment, animal studies. So we go that early, whether it's genomics, whether it's stem cells on the life sciences side. So we are more a seed and a pre-series A investor, Sonali. That means we write the first check, $500,000 to $1 million. Anything in medical devices, digital health, digital therapeutics, life sciences companies. We're reasonably broad. But if you're developing an app to bring a doctor and a patient together, probably we may not be the right fund to support. But if you're developing a specific product for a specific solution, like asthma patients, this is an app which doctors can prescribe. This is for patients' mental health, an app for mental, which doctors can prescribe. They're developing any specific product like that, we are one of they can approach us.
So so very going into the specific use cases of telemedicine.
Yeah.
But when you say life sciences, because these are so deep and so much, so which stage? You said seed stage. So for the startup, they need to prove a POC or prototype or MVP, what it should look like.
I strongly recommend, Sonali, life sciences companies. Luckily, the DBT is so active. Department of Biotechnology, I'm a committee member. Any of those schemes, big grant, big scheme, BIPP, SIBRI is there, National Biopharma is there. First couple of crores, they should always go to big grant, get 50 lakhs, prove what they can achieve, maybe TRL 3 or 4, because they fund the concept ideas also. If there's someone having a concept, no fund will support. And neither is good, it's not good for the entrepreneurs also to dilute themselves at that early stage. Go to a big grant, get 50 lakhs, show a product, TRL 3, TRL 4. If they're sure about it, then let them apply for a BIPP grant, maybe ₹1 crore, take it to TRL 5 or 6, market readiness and SIBRI. First 1-2 crores, I think they should use the governmental grants, which are being liberally given these days. And once the product is ready, they want to scale it up. That's the time they should invest, come to investors like us. Otherwise, my strong recommend either their own money or governmental grants. Probably first couple of crores, I think access is there. There's so many incubators are there, like your Ojas. I think you also must be coming under Department of Biotechnology.
Yes, we are the Bionest.
Yeah, absolutely. Bionest. I think they should utilize your expertise, come to you, and through you fine tune their business model, apply for the grants, and come to us maybe after a year or two after they reach a certain scale. Yeah.
Yeah, we do run a 1 month long grant writing clinic where it's one-on-one reviewing on their proposals, helping them with the refinement and other things. So that's anyways there with the Ojas. So I think we are anyways crossed the time. So I would really like to thank you for answering so many questions, and I think there will be few more coming up to your inbox because you've put in your mail ID. So thanks a lot, Dr. Ramesh. We look forward. We definitely consider you as a great mentor in the Hyderabad ecosystem. And personally, Ojas, MedTech, and CIIIT Hyderabad is definitely very, very fortunate to have you around. So thank you so much.
Recently, I'll advertise myself and sell myself. Recently announced a opening for a fellow in India Partners. I posted in on LinkedIn, and if anyone known to you wants to apply for the fellowship, they can apply.
So there is a remuneration on the fellowship.
Yes, it is absolutely a decent remuneration. It's a very intense program. It's almost like a full time. If that person likes and we like, it can be continued later also. A decent remuneration. We don't want any free service. They should benefit from that fellowship. It's a serious position, not just an internship. Actually.
So is it a cohort of like you can take a couple of
just
them? It's for only one
person in the
one position. Okay, that's very nice.
Competition very high.
Very interesting program. Like we do have similar program, and of course it's not around the investment, but it's about the building your own solution, which is called PEP, postdoctoral entrepreneurship program. That's also a fellowship.
That's more like the EIR, entrepreneurship investment. Yeah. This is a regular fellowship. They'll be exposed to all the facets of investment, from deal sourcing to screening to due diligence to term sheets.
Interesting, yeah.
The portfolio companies, almost a crash course in entrepreneurship and VC investment.
Very good. So while learning, you are actually earning. So that's very good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Sonali, I mean, thank you so much. It was like such a lovely conversation that we had, and I know it geared up and we exceeded time, so sorry for that. But thank you for answering all the questions so patiently. But since we also spoke about Ojas Accelerator, I mean, we would love to know a little more about who all should apply or can apply, and what sort of support can they expect when they enroll in the program.
For Ojas Accelerator, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So for Ojas Accelerator, we seek a startup who have a technology solution and definitely working for healthcare application with the clinical unmet needs. There's a lot of them. So please do not just try to come up. Do not really try to find a new one because you have a technology. So there's already a lot of problem exist. Try to solve them with the technology you have. So tech and the healthcare, these two combination should be MVP ready. Pre-revenue or post-revenue or a little bit of revenue should be okay. We actually help them through this 6-month accelerate, 6 months, very, very structured program. It has a GTM support. So there is we have a business partner to take you through the entire go-to-market strategies, finding out your customer, which are the most compelling one, doing further going into the sub-segment, and then how do you actually acquire them. So the entire GTM part, and then also very research-based support for technology, because since you're working on AI, ML, cognitive science, or any of these, NLP, any of these technology-based solutions, IIIT, you all know that we have a very strong foundation of technology. There's 17 research clusters. So any of these, any of your technology would definitely fall in what our faculties are working on. So we would also get you support or advice through these through the faculties who are doing research for more than 2-3 decades. So that would strengthen the tech part a lot. And then from the domain mentoring, we have multiple mentors, including Dr. Ramesh, one of them. So we have covered the entire domain from some different the entire spectrum of healthcare in terms of the domain. And the most important piece is basically the MedTech consortium. So any startup who are part of Ojas, whether in the accelerator or in the incubation, they are sort of they get access to this MedTech consortium, which is basically an effort of collaborating multiple stakeholders, which required for any healthcare startup to take to take them from early stage to the market ready stage. So it includes hospital, investors, government, manufacturing companies, doctors, physicians, and a lot of other important partners in this, like corporates, industries. So these are all our stakeholders in that. So I think these are the things that, yeah, and not to forget the seed fund. So there's also a seed fund with this, which is definitely very important in the early stage, though it is not a great amount, but I think it's good to start, good to go at an MVP stage, because we do have a follow-on demo day post 6 months, where we call investors across the across nation, and then our startups pitch, and then there's a follow-on round of funding possible. So these are the things, Vanya. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That was really insightful. I'm sure everybody who is here could got a good glimpse of what the program is all about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Take care.